Who's actually going to get the most out of a high-end 16-inch gaming laptop? Who should walk away? And does the price make sense for someone who just wants to play a few titles after work? Those are the three questions I asked myself before I even opened the box, because buying a machine like this feels a lot like signing a lease. You're committing a chunk of cash and you want to be sure it fits into the rest of your life. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first saw the Thunderobot 016, the headline specs were impossible to ignore: a 14th Gen Intel i9-14900HX, RTX 4070, 32GB of DDR5 and a 2TB SSD, all packed into a 16-inch chassis that claims a 240Hz QHD Plus screen. The first hesitation was whether all that power would translate into everyday value or just sit idle behind a glossy white shell. I've spent the last week running the laptop through a mix of real-world scenarios, a nightly League of Legends session, a weekend Elden Ring marathon, a couple of video editing sprints in DaVinci Resolve, and even a commute where I tried to treat it like a portable workstation. What I found were some clear patterns that can help you decide if this is the right machine for you, and where the trade-offs hide. Let's start with the display, because that's the first thing you notice when you open the lid. The 16-inch panel is a 2.5K, 25601440 screen that actually hits the advertised 240Hz refresh rate. In fast-paced shooters like Valorant, the motion feels buttery smooth, and the higher pixel density makes textures in open-world games look crisp without the GPU having to stretch to 4K. In practice, that combination means you can push frame rates into the 150,200 frames per second range at max settings on a RTX 4070, which is more than enough for competitive play. The downside is that the brightness tops out around 300 nits, so in bright daylight the screen can feel a little washed out. If you plan to game in a sunlit CAF or near a window, you'll probably need an external monitor or a hooded case to keep glare down. Thermals are another real-world concern that spec sheets rarely explain. Thunderobot markets an AI-driven power system that supposedly balances performance and heat. In my tests, the laptop stayed around 78°C under a full Cyberpunk 2077 stress test, which is respectable for a 16-inch chassis, but the fans kicked up noticeably after about 15 minutes of sustained load. The acoustic profile is similar to many high-end gaming laptops, a low hum at idle, then a whine that can be heard across a quiet room. If you share a space with others or stream while you game, you might need to crank the fan curve down and accept a small dip in frame rates. The trade-off here is clear: you get top-tier GPU and CPU performance, but you also inherit the typical fan noise of a desktop-class GPU in a portable form factor. Battery life is where the 016 shows its most practical weakness. With a 99 Wh battery, you might expect a few hours of unplugged use, but the reality is that the combination of a power-hungry i9 and an RTX 4070 drains the pack quickly. In my day-to-day routine, I got roughly 2.5 hours of mixed usage, a bit of browsing, a quick Fortnite match, then a short video edit. Once you start pushing the GPU, the runtime drops to under an hour. For someone who wants to game on the train or rely on the laptop as a primary work device, the need to stay plugged in is a real limitation. If you're okay with a power brick always on your desk, this isn't a deal breaker, but it's worth noting. Now, let's talk about the parts that actually make this laptop shine for the right audience. The i9-14900HX is a beast. It handles multi-threaded workloads like rendering, compiling code, or running virtual machines without breaking a sweat. Paired with 32GB of DDR5, you can have dozens of browser tabs, Photoshop layers, and game assets open simultaneously without hitting a memory ceiling. The 2TB SSD is another practical plus. It gives you ample room for a growing library of AAA titles, large video files, and a dedicated partition for work. I never had to worry about space during the week, and the drive's PCIe 4.0 speeds meant game load times were consistently under 10 seconds, even for texture-heavy titles. Connectivity is where Thunderobot tries to future-proof the device. Wi-Fi 6 delivers solid, low-latency connections for online gaming, and the inclusion of a full-size HDMI 2.1 port means you can hook up a 4K monitor without needing a dongle. The laptop also offers a USB-C Thunderbolt 4 port, which is handy if you need to connect an external GPU or fast storage for backup. In practice, I was able to stream my gameplay to a Twitch channel via a USB-C capture card without any hiccups, something that many older gaming laptops still struggle with. So, who should seriously consider the Thunderobot 016? If you're a gamer who wants to play the latest AAA releases at high settings on a portable screen, and you also do content creation,